Okay, so the internal security, um, can anybody say where which part of your syllabus it comes in your IAS syllabus? Because we often say that please go through your syllabus first. Okay, I hope most of you have gone through your IAS syllabus. So this internal security, it comes in paper 3 of your general studies mains. GS mains, and it is also there in KS mains general studies. Okay, any security related exam, suppose if you are writing exam for PSI, now there is a call for IB exams, there is a notification, or if you are writing a deputy superintendent of police, that is your KS exam or IAS exam, this syllabus is very much important. Okay, so whatever you are going to study, it is going to cover all this examination. Whoever appearing or aspiring for this examination, that certainly you can expect the questions from this. Okay, so overall, normally these topics are covered under the topic of internal security. Okay, so here before going into the chapters, I'll just show you the syllabus. So this is your actual syllabus. What for IAS or KAS or even for other examination, under these sectors you need to study the role of external state and non-state actors, challenges to internal security, networks, social media, media and cyber security, money laundering, border issues, any kind of border dispute, border tension, okay, and organized crime and terrorism, the linkages of organized crime and terrorism, security forces and the various agencies and their mandate, what for they have been created, what is their objective, okay, all put together, it is your syllabus for internal security. Okay, if you go through the previous question, so normally advise the students before starting any subject when you start preparation, first step is go through the syllabus. Second step is see the question, at least few questions, few previous year questions, how the questions have come. That you need to go through, because so that you will get an idea how you can link that particular subject and the question and what actually the UPSC or KPSC they are expecting answer from you. Okay, so that's very important. So please go through the syllabus once again. Is there any doubt in this? Here, the role of external state means don't get confused with the state government. It is a country. In the case of for today's class, it's the government of India or any other country, any other neighboring country. You got the point. Role of external state or non-state actors. Here, the state means it's the country. It is like a social network, social media. Through that, what are the threat you have? Anybody can say what do you mean by organized crime? What do you mean by organized crime? Anyone? Any crime with systematic approach to cheat the agencies, that is coming under the organized crime. So there are criminal syndicates like drug mafia. Okay, it's an organized crime. So that we will see it in detail, deeper inside the subjects. Okay, so here you have a look at how the questions have come actually in your IAS exam. And the same questions you can expect in KAS. Whereas in other competitive examination, it is just an objective information, whatever we are going to study here. So that is enough to answer the question. Here, just read out. Say, for example, how the recent phenomena of protectionism and currency manipulation in world, currency manipulation in world trade affect macroeconomic stability of India. Macroeconomic stability of India. It is almost to an extent looks like an economic question, but it is very much related with internal security. And the cyber crime, Sri Krishna committee and their discussion. Okay, so there is a huge amount of cyber security threat is there in India. So that's the question it is asked just 2 years before 2018. Next is India's proximity to two of the world's biggest illicit opium growing state. World's biggest illicit opium growing state has enhanced her internal security concern. So this is the first line is a statement. When you always look for a mains question, there will be a statement will be given, and you need to understand and digest that particular statement first. Then you go for what they are asking it. Explain the linkage between drug trafficking and other illicit activities such as gun running, money laundering, and human trafficking. Okay, this is one section of the question. Second is what countermeasures would be taken to prevent the same. This is second section of the question. Okay, so this is a statement, and in this purview of that statement, you need to answer the question for a first statement as well as the second statement, so that you can able to gain maximum mark, and everything should be done within 250 words. You got the point? So you should not answer the question just like that. Okay, it looks like they are talking about the drug trafficking. Okay, let me write whatever I know. That is not the case. Here, you need to give more thrust on our neighboring country, who happen to be the world's biggest illicit opium growing state. Which are the countries are there? Anybody? It is our neighboring state. They are the largest producer of opium.
Afghanistan.
Okay, then one more. Afghanistan is correct. One more. There are two.
Russia.
Not Russia, it is Pakistan.
Okay.
Okay, the Pakistan and Afghanistan, these two are the world's biggest illicit opium growing state. It is clear. And you know who is the largest consumer of the drug? Largest, what do you call it? Consumer in the entire world, where the drug consumption is huge.
I think Russia. I'm not sure.
Not Russia, it is the Southeast Asian countries. That is also happened to be our neighboring country. That is Myanmar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Laos, Thailand.
Thailand.
You got the point. This is considered as a golden crescent. Golden crescent. So what is, if you observe one side, what do you call it, Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the middle you have India, and the another side these three countries, Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand. So what happened? India became a transit route for the entire drug trafficking. It is passing through India only. Keep it in your mind. So tomorrow, when you are going to be an officer, it is a major challenging task. We have a narcotics bureau, IB, or what do you call RAW, research and analysis wing, and a lot of other agencies are coming up, because it's a very challenging task. Because one side there is a huge producer, another side there is a huge market, and they have to transit through India. So that is the major trouble. It is happening here. So recently, you might have seen in recent media report in a Bollywood or in what do you call in Kannada cine media, the cases were filed against the cine actors and actors against the drug abuse, drug usage. It is clear the investigation is going on. Plus, there was a movie in Bollywood about the hike in drug usage in Punjab, because Punjab happened to be the border state with Pakistan. It is clear. Same way in India, in a northeastern states, the drug consumption is more, because again it's happened to be border to Myanmar. So
I think Nepal is also one of the biggest drug dealer.
yes, Nepal also it's coming. Almost in all the surrounding area, it's a huge. The consumption level as well as the market is keep emerging. And these players, this producer and consumer, they are always looking. India is the biggest market in terms of population, in terms of the youngest population in the world. We are the youngest population in the entire world. So they are. It can be, if they could able to convert India into the biggest market, their trade would be very easy, and they can make billions of trade. It is clear. That is another target for them. So one side, they are keep pushing the drug inside the Indian market. Another side, India happened to be a perfect zone of transit from west to east. It's clear. So that is what they are explaining this question. All these things you need to highlight, but the biggest challenge is you need to finish the game within 250 words. It's clear. So anyway, that we will see in detail. It's clear. So this is how the questions used to come. So the same kind of questions you can expect in IAS as well as in KAS, but anything related with the committee or something. Suppose the Sri Krishna committee report was asked in a PSI. Direct question. They will ask which committee is related with cyber security. Okay, so you should know the just name. Okay, and what they are claiming it. So that is how you need to link it with your exam. Okay, so now we have seen the syllabus and the type of questions. Now you can have a look at the chapters. MHM means Ministry of Home Affairs, Security Forces, Border Management, Development and Extremism, Naxalism, Security Threat and J&K, Terrorism, complete about the Northeast and the insurgency in other area, organized crime, as I told, drug or a human trafficking or a, what do you call any other Hawala transaction, all those things will come under organized crime. Mubocracy means, what is this? Anyone? Mubocracy. Any idea on this? Recently, it is happening in India.
Protests?
No, it is nothing but mob lynching.
Oh.
Mob lynching. So it's what do you call the crowd management or a mob lynching. So the huge number of people, due to some wrong information, they started taking the law in their hand and they are attacking the people and killing the people. It happened in Bangalore also. Okay, last year, someone have been identified as a what do you call child abuser somewhere in Bangalore based on the some WhatsApp viral message, and the person was completely linked and was killed. Okay, so that kind of incidents are in the name of cow vigilantism, we are killing the people. So that is happening. This is a recent issues. This is also part of internal security threat. Internal security threat. It is clear. So any place if there is a crowd, as per the government office, as per the IB or IB report or something, if there is a long-standing crowd in any place, there are great chances that can be turned into the violence. Okay, so this is the basic what do you call concept. Suppose now there is a farm bill protest is going on in Delhi continuously. So there is a large amount of crowd of farmers are gathered in that. So any untoward incident, if it happens, that entire crowd can react differently into violent manner. Okay, so that time it become a Mubo classic. It's clear. So that we will see in detail. Next is the cyber warfare. The next warfare would be a cyber, not with guns and bullets. So next warfare mostly would be in with the cyber warfare, cyber threat. So there is a huge amount of cyber threat is looming over India that we need to discuss. All put together, it is coming under internal security. It's clear. So any doubts so far in this? So now we'll see one by one. Let's see what I mean by term internal security. Securing country from dangers within the country and from the external forces. So internal security means don't think that the dangers are emerging only from within India. Only from within India, not only from within India and from the external forces also, because external forces, the non-state actors will try to see the dangers within the country to destabilize you. It is clear. So that is a game altogether. So we need to secure the country from dangers, both within the country as well as from the outside. And the basic difference between the internal and external threat: security from threats within the country, security from threat to the territorial integrity and sovereignty. Say, for example, what happened in Galwan incident with China, okay, or Doklam, or Kargil with Pakistan. So all these things are, it questions the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation. Okay, it is an external threat. And it is a internal, if you take covert and subtle militant action, that means they will try to act silently. Covert, subtle, militant action. It's a kind of, all of a sudden there'll be a bomb blast. After the bomb blast, we'll come to know that how it has happened, then we'll go for the investigation and other thing. Whereas here it's not like that. It is an open militant action. Open militant, large scale forces will come, they'll start attacking, entering into the border. And here the Ministry of, for internal threat, to take care of it, Ministry of Home Affairs aided by central and paramilitary forces. There are different forces are there and they are helping the Ministry of Home Affairs. Whereas external threats completely handled by the Ministry of Defense forces like Army, Navy, Air Force, what do you call it, and the combined defense forces all put together, they will take care of external threat or any threat to the territorial integrity. Syllabus we have seen, questions we have seen. So now we'll move on to the Ministry of Home Affairs. Just have a look. These are the 6 different departments are there under Ministry of Home Affairs. We simply say Ministry of Home. This question was asked in IAS prelims. Department of Official Language comes under which ministry? You got the point. Normally, you may not able to link it official language with the Ministry of Home Affairs. You tend to commit a mistake. It is clear. Department of Border Management, Department of Internal Security, Department of Jammu and Kashmir Affairs, Department of Home, Department of State, and also the Department of Official Language. It is clear. Suppose with the linguistic basis, if you are dividing the state, or if you are recognizing any other new language, okay, into the what you call 7th list of, 8th list of Indian Constitution, then all those things should be accepted by Minister of Home Affairs. The Home Minister should say yes. Okay, these are the 6 department comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs.
So what is Department of Home again?
So the Department of Home, they will purely dealing about the internal security, like your IAS and IPS officers, particularly IPS officers, dealing them, okay, transferring them or putting some important assignment, all those things will come under this. Whereas border management, it comes under what do you call various agencies which is related with the borders. It's clear.
Yeah.
So now this border management comes with what do you call the various agencies. The agencies are like this. One is Assam Rifle, another one is the Border Security Force, CASF, Central Industrial Security Forces, CRPF, ITBP, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, NSD, National Security Guards, SSB, Sasastra Seema Bal. Okay, so all these agencies, you may think that it looks like more or less they are doing the same kind of job. But what is the difference among these? Can anyone? Why these many agencies are defined and what is the exact purpose of it? See, these agencies are created with specific to some country border. These questions can be raised in your exam. Say, for example, BSF, it is created with focus on Pakistan only for Pakistan. Okay, if you go to the western part of India, in Jammu and Kashmir or in Rajasthan or in Punjab, there you can see the majority of BSF forces will be there. It is clear. Western part of India. And if you go to the eastern part of India, northeastern state, okay, particularly the border between India and and Myanmar. So there you can see the Assam rifle, Myanmar and Bhutan, the border between India and Myanmar and India and Bhutan, secured by Assam rifle. So they have a specific mandate. Which agency is created for which border? It is clear. ITBP, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, the name itself indicates it taking care of the border between the Nepal and China, these two primarily. Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Apart from this, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, it is also give the security cover to high-profile dignitaries in India. Namely, say for example, President, Rashtrapati Bhavan, protected by ITBP, Vice President, and your IAS Training Center, Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, LBSNA, okay, in your Mussoorie. Once if you become an IAS officer, when you are getting trained at Mussoorie Training Center, the training center coming under 3 layer of protection under ITBP. Keep it in your mind. So these questions can be raised in your PSA exam or even in prelims subjective type of questions. It is clear. ITBP, which among the following agencies are giving security cover to president? Then you'll get confused. Okay, it is specially assigned to the ITBP. Same way vice president is taking care of ITBP. Prime minister comes under NSG. Prime minister comes under NSG and Commando Forces. And your Mussoorie Training Center also is coming under ITBP. It is clear. Whereas CRPF, if you take CRPF, it is primarily focused area against Naxals or left-wing extremism. Left-wing extremism. So these forces you can see primarily on wherever there is an Naxal activities are more particularly on the eastern part of India and many interior particular place like Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and what you call Madhya Pradesh, sometimes even in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, because the Naxals were very active once upon a time, around 200 districts in India. Totally, how many districts we have? Approximately. How many districts we have in India? Anyone? Approximately. Anybody can give the number.
No idea, sir.
644.
What is the approximate districts in India?
Nearly 700.
Yeah, approximately it's correct. It is around, we have around 630 districts are there. 630 districts, it's an approximate number, plus or minus. It might be, what do you call it, plus or minus. So out of the 630, if you see around 10 years before, around 200 districts, we had an Naxal problem, almost 1/3. Okay, so the Naxals were, it's a major issues. Okay, so these things were controlled and focused by CRPF. Okay, so that is their focus area. And what is the role played by CASF? Central Industrial Security Force. The name itself indicates industrial security forces. Okay, the major what do you call central government or a state government installations, security related installations. Say for example, nuclear reactors, airports. It's clear. Or like public sector units where you are making atomic bomb or where you are enriching your uranium or where you are making a missiles. It's clear. So where we are manufacturing missiles? Anybody? India have multiple missiles where we are getting produced. Where is it? The production center. This question was asked in your exam. Missile production centers in India. Anyone? Avadi, Chennai, they are making not missiles. They are making tank, army tank. They are making army tank. Like Arjuna tank is getting ready from Chennai. Arjuna is the name of the army tank. But the missile production, it comes from Hyderabad. It is a place called BDL, Bharat Dynamic Limited. You please note down. Bharat Dynamics Limited. Okay. So this is the place, almost all kind of missile, whatever the missile you are aware about it, whatever you are studying it in a defense technology or in a newspaper media like Prithvi, Nag, Akash, Dhanush, BrahMos. Okay, all these missiles are getting ready in a single place that is called BDL. It is a high security zone in Hyderabad. Okay, again, these places are completely coming under the security zone of CISF. It's clear. So it's completely guarded by them under almost 2 to 3 layers. And if you take the another security, like in Karnataka, where you have a nuclear reactors, we have it in Kaiga. Okay, Kaiga nuclear reactors or Chennai Kalpakam. Okay, so wherever we have a nuclear reactors, again that is coming under CISF. Apart from these primary security installation, even the CISF sometimes helping, even the private companies are approaching CISF. Okay, I hope you are aware about it. Once upon a time, Infosys was in a news for a wrong reason. That means there was a security threat against the Infosys complex in Bangalore. Okay,
Yes.
there was a security threat. They had a plan to go for the bomb blast against Infosys. Then the Infosys approached the government, and the government requested them to go for a CISF. Okay, now this entire Infosys, even though it is a private, it is coming under CISF, but the Infosys need to pay the fee. They are paying it. So the entire Infosys is coming under Central Industrial Security Forces. Like that, even the private players, they can, request a CISF, and they will get the high quality security in the government standard, and they need to pay the fee. There is a huge amount of fees being paid by the Infosys for their security after this threat. It is clear. I think somebody has asked what is Naxals, who is Naxals? Then I will come to that. Okay, when we're going for the Naxal, we are going to discuss in detail. So far, it's clear about this particular slide.
What is SSB?
SSB again, it is guarding the border only. Particularly, it is a kind of assisted forces. Again, with Bhutan, Nepal, or Chinese border, particularly in Sikkim. Okay, so they are taking care of it. Indo-Chinese border, particularly. It's clear. So in this, particularly only one thing is unique, that is Assam rifle. By convention, these Assam rifles are raised from military. Okay, it is not a paramilitary forces, except all these things. The Assam rifle head will be normally from military officers. Normally will be from military officers, and they will almost behave like a military, not like a paramilitary, because they are training the weaponry methods, or the head of the office. They are all from directly recruited from the military. It is clear. So other than that, these people, even suppose if you are an IPS officer, you can head even the BSF. Keep it in your mind. You are eligible by the time you reach almost at the age of retirement or in the IG level. If you want on deputation, you can be a head of Director General of BSF or SASF or CRPF. It is possible. IPS officers can be posted here, but not for Assam Rifles, because by convention, Assam Rifles are headed by direct recruited military officers. Am I clear? That's the only difference when it comes to the Assam Rifle. Otherwise, the operation wise, the rest all everything is same. Okay, and the other important agencies which is involving in the internal securities are, one is Intelligence Bureau, IB, RAW, Research and Analysis Wing, and National Intelligence Grid. That's a new organization we are getting ready. It's going to be operational from 2021 or 22. National Investigation Agencies and National Technical Research Organization, NTRO. So these are the different organizations it is working. So if you see the Intelligence Bureau, what they do, they'll try to collect the intelligence about any kind of what you call threat to nation by fixing a mole or a kind of spy activities within India. So their job is like completely within India. But it is almost very oldest organization among all. It is almost 100 plus years old history. Okay. It started during the British period. It started during the British period. Even the Britishers, many of the revolt or oppositions are broken away in India during the period of freedom struggle, primarily with the help of Intelligence Bureau. Okay, so that was established during that time. So they played a major role for the government sector, how to minimize the protest. Say, for example, even 1857 revolt in Indian history was totally controlled by the Britishers with the help of intelligence agencies. Okay, but by that time, formally there was no IB was not created. Keep it in your mind. So there was it's an unorganized sector. Completely, it was not organized. But the British historians they are recording it. The 1857 revolt was effectively controlled by the Britishers within a period of year, primarily because of spying activities on the opposite side. Okay, so the same thing in a current scenario, if you see that intelligence bureau primarily used by the ruling government to control or what you call divert attention or minimize the impact of any kind of mass protest, including what is happening right now in Farm Bill. Am I clear? So that is how their working nature, so that you can minimize the impact or the pressure points towards the government of India. So that is their role. Apart from that, of course, they are primarily working on what you call anti-social activities or against terrorism or insurgency or anything. So they have a wide role. This is one among the role, what you call minimizing the protest against the ruling government. That is one of the primary role. Next, if you see the RAW, Research and Analysis Wing, this was created later. Only in 1968 they created it after Indo-China War. And if you see at the time of independence, there was no RAW. Okay, so the India had the IB was playing a role of collecting internal intelligence as well as external intelligence. For both, it is a single organization at the time of independence in 1947. Okay, because they never realized it, there should be a separate organization for the external intelligence. But when we faced an attack from China in 1962, that was a massive failure of IB because they were not focused much on external intelligence. Okay, so then the country realized it. We need to have a separate agency for the external intelligence to collect the data from outside the country. So they, collected or mustered the officers from IB or from other agencies, and they created a separate agency in 1968. That only it's RAW. Am I clear? So the RAW played a major crucial role, and in the later major war, in terms of 1971 war with Bangladesh and 1975, and in even in a Kargil war. So they played a very, very crucial role against the enemy. So in that aspect, the RA is a grand successful organization, but it emerged outside IB from 1968. That is clear. Next is the National Intelligence Grid. National Intelligence Grid. If you see the recent Mumbai attack, not recent, almost 10 years before. Mumbai attack, the attack on Taj and other major terrorist action. Again, it was considered it's a kind of massive intelligence failure. Particularly, there was no cooperation among agencies. So that was the primarily identified. That means intelligence was gathered. They know that something going to happen in India on a particular month, but that was not properly disseminated to the other agencies. Okay, suppose the IB knows something that they are giving to the local police, and the local police, they are not intimating to the local authorities. Okay, or if the local police knows something, it is not in a timely manner, it is not coming to the IB. Okay, this is how the things are. There are various agencies are working. Various agencies are working. They are collecting the intelligence from the ground, and that need to be gathered in a proper manner. And you need to deliver something called actionable intelligence. Actionable intelligence. So they need to pinpoint it. So what need to be done? What should be the action at the end of the intelligence input? It is clear. So that is called actionable intelligence was lacking. That was the reason there was a bomb blast. Okay, but we have identified now. Now we are creating an agency called National Intelligence Grid, NAT Grid. Please explain about RAW again. Okay, fine, I'll do that. Let me finish this. So National Intelligence Grid is organizing, collecting data from the different agencies. Say, for example, the person is having an Aadhaar card, and is having a PAN card, and is having the voter ID, and the mobile bill. Okay, and what else? Passport. Okay, all these things are carried by different agencies. But when I'm analyzing all these things, suppose, say, for example, I'm checking the person's what do you call mobile bill tower, and I'm checking the person's passport, where and all he traveled, and his mobile bill tower. When I'm correlating these two, I'll come to the conclusion approximately what kind of person he is, where he is actively involving in it, which zone he is moving, or within which city he is living in the past 6 months or 1 year, which area in a city is moving primarily. That can be easily identified. You got the point? Because there is a mobile tower. If somebody is getting able to get your mobile number and mobile bill for the past few months, I can able to tell what and all the area you have roamed, where in which zone you are living. Okay, where is your home? Where is your office? What time you will be in office? What is your routine task? Everything can be analyzed by this. There are software that will give you the data. Okay. And when I'm analyzing the PAN card and the Aadhaar card, I can see your financial movements. I can see your financial movement and the bank record and everything. So when an agency is collecting the data from all these things, they can finally come to the conclusion whether this is the person we need to target or not. So there are great chances we can get actionable intelligence. It's clear. So that is a role played by the National Intelligence Grid. So they are trying to connect it 28 different agencies. 28 different agencies will be connected in a centralized area, and the centralized center they are going to establish in Bangalore. Okay, the Bangalore is formally announced. It is going to be the center because of IT capital. Okay, and it is yet to be established. It is clear. It is in the process. Probably by 2021 it will be ready. So that's the role played by the National Intelligence Grid. So here you can see NAT grid. Info gathered from 21 domain, not 28, 21 different domains they are collecting it, and info analyzed, pinpoint, and shared with 10 central agencies, primary agencies like IB, RAW, CBI, okay, or what you call income tax department like that, or army or a defense, anything, defense forces. So the totally around 10 central agencies where they are actually involved on the ground. That means actionable role who are all involved in border security area and other area, so that they can take the steps and prevent any kind of untoward incident against India. Okay, so that's the whole logic behind it. This was lacking during Mumbai blast very much. So here somebody asked about the RAW. RAW is an external agency. RAW is an external agency. And the name is Research and Analysis Wing. Research and Analysis Wing. Okay, that is raw. Raw is primarily, there won't be any direct recruitment for the raw. Suppose if you are an officer, if you want to be a raw officer, you can directly join. Very rarely they will select the candidate directly. There won't be any advertisement or something. Only the basic what do you call support staff they will select, like a stenographer, typist, or office boy or someone. Only that advertisement will come. But the primary role will be played by IB officers. Okay, suppose if you want to join the raw, you need to first join IB, and from there on deputation you can go to raw. Very much. Okay, so now the last week there was a notification for what do you call IB recruitment. IB recruitment, around 2,000 officers they are selecting it. Okay, it is equal to the inspector role. So whoever interested, you can apply it. Okay, you can just visit Google and check it. You'll get the link. You can apply. I think the last date is there till Jan mid. Okay, it's a single examination. There'll be a preliminary examination, then there'll be a main examination, then interview. Okay, and the questions will be exactly in the same standard of IAS. Just a copy paste. Whatever you are doing for IAS preparation or KAS preparation, that is highly enough to get through in this. Okay, but once if you through this, once if the training is done after a few years of service, almost every year they'll give the what do you call circular. If you are willing, you can join for raw. Okay, and again there'll be another one more round of interview. Once if your process is through, and you'll be an officer. Okay, so what is the role played by the raw? They will collect what do you call intelligence inputs from outside the country. That means other than India, rest of across the globe, the raw officers will be there, and they used to collect wherever it is required. They spend money, or they'll work on the field. They'll collect the data, and that will be passed on to the IB. And the moment it comes inside India, the IB will take over, and the moment it goes outside India, the raw will take over. Okay, so they'll just correlate it, and they'll bring an actionable intelligence, and they will deliver it on the ground. So this is what they are doing it. It is clear. So the major success is Indo-China War. After Indo-China War, there was no, at the time of Indo-China War, there was no raw. After Indo-China War, when we faced a huge amount of embarrassment, then the government of India created 1968, and that became a handy, and we could able to create a success in terms of 1971 Pakistan war, and the raw helped tremendously by sitting inside Bangladesh. We had given the tactical movement for the Indian Army, and Bangladesh was successfully created, emerged in 1971. So in that, we can say the major credit goes to the raw. Next is the Sikkim integration in 1975. That was primarily helped by raw agencies. And LTT, controlling LTT in Sri Lanka, or stopping them, again the raw played a major role. Creating better, strengthening the relationship in Afghanistan, again they have done. And 1984 there was a massive operation. It is called Operation Meghdoot. Can anybody can say it's related with what? Operation Meghdoot, 1984. It's quite famous, and it is well known. And it is an important assignment, an important task executed cleverly, pinpoint. It is related with protecting Siachen Glacier. Siachen Glacier is a kind of a place where it is a strategically very, very important location. It is in the high elevated zone. Whoever guarding this Siachen Glacier, they can easily protect entire Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so that's the situation right now. Okay, right now it is with India. Okay, that was primarily done with the well-known operation called Operation Meghdoot. Okay, so they could able to defeat Pakistanis and their attack to what you call capture Siachen Glacier through Operation Meghdoot, primarily by the raw officials. It's clear. So these are all the basic what you call success story of raw. Any doubt in this?
No.
Okay, fine.
So no more success like after 1985
Hmm.
till date?
No, here this RAW and IB, they'll always be successful, but their role is like a football goalkeeper. Okay, then you will get the news whenever there is a failure only. You got the point.
Right.
Now I can say after this incident, they are tremendously successful so that we don't have any news of bomb blast after 2010. Do we have anything?
So after that, we had many in
Huh?
India. After that, we had many in India itself.
Can you tell me anything? After 2010, any major one? Like after the Mumbai blast,
Yeah, Mumbai, then Hyderabad serial blast. Then
Hyderabad, it's before that. It was 2007. Hyderabad serial blast, I am talking about after 2010. Mumbai blast was in 2008.
yeah,
Hyderabad serial blast was 2007.
okay.
After that, if you closely monitor it, after 2010, if you go and check it, of course, there might be a what do you call few bomb blast here and there, but the injury cases or the agencies involved in this or terrorist organizations were not much. See, even in Bangalore, we had a bomb blast in 2011.
Hmm.
In 2011, in Koramangala, Madiwala, and other places, there was a serial bomb blast. It is a normal crude bomb. Somebody have made it on their own home. No one was got injured, and those people were arrested by the local police itself. Not major threat to the entire country. As such, what happened in 2008 bomb blast in Mumbai. You got the point. So
Yeah.
that kind of massive planning and the massive bomb blast or the serial bomb blast. Luckily, it is not happening yet after 2010 because we have plugged all the loopholes and our agencies are working really well. So because of that, we are all peaceful. Okay.
So
So
what is
that is why,
sleeper cells?
see, that's what I'm telling. Whenever there is a sleeper cell or something is broken out, you won't get the news. Suppose, say, for example, today morning, some terrorist in Bangalore is getting arrested.
Hmm.
Okay. But they are planning to have a bomb blast next week. Today they are arrested. You'll not even get the news in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Even if there is a news, there'll be a small box news will come. Small box news will come. The people may not aware. It won't be in a headline. When it will be a headline, when there is a bomb blast, it will be a headline. That is why there is a perfect comparison. The goalkeeper job is like whenever he is missing the goal, he will be widely watched. Whenever he's holding it, nobody talk about it. No one talks about it. You got the point. Because the international football statistics are mentioned how many goals you have put. That means how many times the goalkeeper missed it. Not how many times the goalkeeper captured it. That is not the case. So because of that, it looks like the police and other people, they are not doing the job. Actually, they are doing effective job so that you and me are peaceful. Am I clear? So
Yeah.
that is the way you have to infer. It's clear.
Yes.
So they are doing effective, and now we are what do you call? We are coming up with the NAT grid. Okay, and another agency, National Technical Research Organization. So that's what I have told. So what is their role? This one, National Technical Research Organization. That means these people, what they will do, they'll go for a complete research on the latest gadgets, what's available on the market, latest software, latest gadgets, latest weapon. Okay, and they will look after across the world. And if anything comes to the market which can be used for any kind of intelligence agencies or something, they will immediately procure it and they will analyze it and they will try to use it for the Indianized condition and that will be delivered to the Indian agencies. Okay, for that purpose, we have made separate agency also now. Earlier, there was a blame in human intelligence. I mean, intelligence bureau mostly work on human intelligence. This was the blame normally. That means we are lacking on tech intelligence, but we are extremely good in human intelligence. Okay, we are Indians are extremely good in human intelligence, and we were lacking in tech intelligence. Now that is also it's lacking. Now We are improving in this also. We are what do you call it, getting a high-end, huge technical gadgets, which is across the globe, what is available for even for CAA or what do you call MI6 or any other well-known what do you call intelligence agencies across the globe. Whatever they are using it, even our technical people are using it.
So I think throughout the world, the Russian intelligence is the most powerful. Is what I heard.
Not Russian, it is Israel.
Yeah, now it's Israel, but
No,
Russian
Israel.
was actually.
See the concept of intelligence itself, it's emerged from Russia only. I mean Israel only. Okay, Israel were the leading. Okay, of course the Russians are also very much involved in that, because Russia and CIA, I mean the America and Russia, when they were in the Cold War scenario, the entire Cold War was running what do you call in terms of spy only between US and Russia. So in that aspects, they were looks like they were very strong in terms of intelligence. Okay. Nowadays, other countries like India and MI6 or what do you call other countries also, they are leading in terms of their operational capacity. As far as India is concerned, if you see that we are totally surrounded by enemies, so we have to be good in terms of gathering intelligence, and we are doing it.
Where does India stand amongst the world?
Maybe in the top 2 or 3. In fact, I'll explain you. In 1998, India went for the nuclear test.
Yeah.
Okay, 1998, India went for the nuclear test by cheating all intelligence agencies across the world.
Yes, that was Parmanu, right?
That was
Parmanu.
Parmanu means?
The test, actually, nuclear test.
No. This is called Pokhran test. It is called.
Yeah, Pokhran. Yeah.
It is a Pokhran test. It is called Smiling Buddha. It is a code name. Okay, because you just observe, even American CIA is monitoring it, MI6 is monitoring it,
Yes.
Israel is monitoring it, Russians are monitoring it. We have cheated everyone. We have cheated everyone. It was done under the leadership of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
Yes.
Okay, because even the APJ himself, he has told in an interview, he told, in order to cheat all these intelligence agencies and their satellites, because the satellites are keep monitoring it on Indian territory where India is going to, what do you call, going for the nuclear test. Okay.
Yeah.
So what the APJ and others they have done, all the scientists were given the code name. All the scientists were given the code name. Abdul Kalam name was Narayanan. If somebody calls, what do you call, somebody speaks about APJ or somebody talks about him or he is speaking to them, they will use the word Narayana, how are you? Are you okay? Something like that. Because all your phone calls were tapped.
Yeah.
Okay, the spies are keep monitoring you. Okay, so they can able to easily. This is just he told open interview, he told all our scientists' names were changed. Okay, and there is something called digital print, digital signature. What do you mean by that? Anybody know that? Digital signature. And they have erased the entire digital signature also, so that they could able to cheat the entire world.
No, I didn't understand the digital signature. What's that?
See, I'll tell you, conducting a nuclear test, it is not like a Fugazi firecracker. You need to have a massive arrangement inside the desert, in Thar desert. That means a lot of vehicles should go and you need to dig large scale, what do you call, cave-like structures, you need to create it. And the advanced weaponry, you need to arrange it, and the entire people in and around should be evacuated. But all these things can be easily captured by the digital photograph. The satellites are keep roaming over India. Americans are having a huge number of satellites, and they can easily monitor any kind of movement. If it is happening in Thar desert, it can be done. You got the point?
Yeah.
But what they have done, suppose if let us imagine it, if the truck is moving in the Thar desert, which is having a equipments related with nuclear test, Suppose if the 100 trucks are moving, when the trucks are moving on the soil, you will have the tire marks on the soil. Keep it in your mind. This is called digital signature. When I'm taking a repeated photograph of Thar Desert, and the software will keep on analyze it, and if they come to know that somebody passed through that, they'll come to know that there is a passage or the heat sensor is there, some vehicle or somebody has crossed this particular place.
Yes. Correct.
So this is called digital signature. By calculating this only, they could able to say that India is getting ready for the nuclear test. You got the point?
Yeah.
Because in 1998, we went for the nuclear test, but 2-3 years before itself we supposed to do. That time, American president openly announced that India should not go for the nuclear test because they collected the intelligence very well. Well before we are getting ready. Because we supposed to go for the nuclear test somewhere around 3 years before. Then India was forced to stop the nuclear test that time. Keep it in your mind. That was the actual history. That means when an American president is announcing it,
Yes.
and the India, you cannot, what you call, deliberately you cannot go and do the nuclear test. It may create a wrong signal. It may create a, what you call, send a, what you call, arms race with our neighbor, with Pakistan or China, and the world may not accept it. So the India kept quiet. But we have to go for the nuclear test because we need to prove it our caliber. And we need to do all these things. So the Abdul Kalam was telling it, even whenever the tire is moving, and there are some devices they will use it, even the tire mark they will erase it. This is how they've done, closely, step by step, in a randomly, and they meticulously calculated. There is something called shadow period. That means when the satellites are keep roaming around, India across the globe, in sometimes, some hour, there might be a shadow period on India, on the particular Thar Desert. Only in that period, they started moving all the vehicles. This is, I'm not telling, it was told by Abdul Kalam.
Yeah.
It is clear. That means it's a meticulous design. It is a meticulous design. It is clear. Suppose the CCTV cameras are roaming, you might have seen in a movie, no? CCTV camera will keep oscillate. Okay, the hero will wait for when the camera is coming here and he'll start moving here. Then there'll be another camera and you move like this. Like this, you need to cheat the camera and move. That is what they have done. Here, it is not the person is moving. You need to, what you call, shift the huge amount of goods and services. And you need to create the massive structure inside the Thar Desert. Everything they have done. And in a fine day, we announced the world, India went for the nuclear test. After we announced only, even the USCAA become a, what do you call it? It become a shock.
Yeah.
You got the point?
Yeah. So the Pokhran Act, sir, I'm not, if I'm not wrong, then that was a Parmanu, nuclear testing, and the project is called Pokhran, under the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
No. What they have done, it is not Parmanu. They have kept the code name for the project. It is called Operation Parakrama.
Oh, okay.
Operation Parakrama was the code name for the whole project. It is clear. Like I told, Operation Magdut. It is clear. Like that, Operation Parakrama was the code name. Under the code name, even each and every scientist names were changed. Whatever they are discussing, everything will be a code name. So the complete project were discussed like that, so that they could able to avoid. Plus digital signatures were erased. Plus the shadow period was properly calculated. They meticulously designed. All these things were done. Then 1998, somewhere in the May, we have done the test. Then we announced the world that India not one bomb. We went for the 5 different nuclear tests in a different capacity. You got the point. In 1974, what we did, that was a single bomb. Okay, that time India was not fully recognized as a nuclear weapon state. That was the issue. To prove the world that we are completely reliable, we have a high-end version of nuclear weapon, we need to go for the test. So we went for the 5 different kind of nuclear weapon. Okay, that is in 1998. After this incident, see, in English there is something called oxymoron. What is that? Anybody? Anybody can say? In English, there is a style of when the words are getting arranged in a particular style, it is called oxymoron. What do you mean by that? It is nothing but two continuous words are giving two different contradictory terms. Say, for example, if I am say ugly Aishwarya Rai. Okay, it is an oxymoron in English. So ugly means you know that Aishwarya Rai is beautiful, and the two words are combined together. It is coming in a statement. It is called ugly Aishwarya Rai. Like this, if there is a two words are coming together, then it become an oxymoron. It is clear. So after 1998, worldwide, the people started using American intelligence. This become an oxymoron. Keep it in your mind. That means here instead of intelligence, you can put fool. Or instead of here, you can put fool. That is the actual meaning. That was the success of Indian intelligence in 1998. You got the point? The people started using American intelligence as an oxymoron. This was the what you call embarrassing statement given by international media of American intelligence failure, CIA failure against India's nuclear test. So such a way we can able to meticulously we can design because that time what we have done, we went completely human intelligence. No mail, nothing. Only the letters will be written, postcard. You write it in a postcard and pass the message. So the data will never revealed. Data will be never revealed. So such a manner they started communicating it so that the other intelligence agencies cannot able to follow. Okay, nowadays it's not like that. Your WhatsApp, your email, your CCTV camera, your laptop, everywhere there is a digital print. Digital print. So that can be easily gathered by any agencies. They can analyze it. They can come to the conclusion what kind of person you are. Am I clear? So that was not done in 1998 nuclear test. So in that manner, we started believing that, and we become a leader in terms of human intelligence. Okay, across the globe, human intelligence are very active. We are. Now we have started giving importance to the technical intelligence also without diluting our human intelligence capacity. So that's the beauty of development in the past 10 years or in the 20 years, whatever we have done. Am I clear? So because of that, we don't, what do you call, we start getting the benefit of like the massive intelligence failures are not happening yet. Not happening yet. So any questions so far in this? Any question? Okay, and if you see the IB, it started in 1887 officially, and till 1968 it was handling both, that is internal and external. After 1968, the RA is separated, and even now it is continuing. And it is a constitutional body. IB is a constitutional body. That means what? In the original constitution itself, it is mentioned. Original constitution itself, the word IB is being mentioned. RA is not like that. It is a separate executive body. It is created after independence through the executive order by separating or diverting few officials from the IB. And the strength of IB is huge. It is more than 20,000 employees are there. RA is probably around 2,000 employees, not more than that. That is clear. And whenever they need a staff, and they will simply recruit from here on a deputation basis. Suppose if you become an IPS officer, if you are working, say for example, if you are working in Karnataka or in Tamil Nadu, and even for IPS officers, there will be a circulars will come from IB as well as from RA. If they are interested, they can shift to IB or RA. Okay, almost every year you'll get the circular from both the end. Okay, it depends on your interest, how many years you want to serve, you can go. You can go there and work for 5 years minimum, and up to 8 years you can work, and again you can come back to your state cadre also. That is possible. Okay, it is all considered as a deputation. Deputation periods are normally minimum 5 years and maximum it goes up to 8 years. It's clear? So any doubt so far in this? So this is an act grid we have seen already. Okay, so this is the place where the operation Magdus was happened. Here you can see this is the Siachen Glacier. Okay, so this area is POK, it is the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. This is JNK, and this is Aksai Chin. Chinese were occupied in 1962. Okay, so this place, the shaded area, if you see that, it is a territory ceded by Pakistan to China, which is occupied by Pakistan to make the dispute from bilateral to trilateral. So that's the whole logic behind it. Actually, the dispute is bilateral. This is what India is claiming it. And in order to make it trilateral and the enemy is friend, so what they will do? He brought by ceding this particular area and it was given to China. Okay, right now, this territory is with Chinese. Okay, in this aspect, this white line, this is Siachen Glacier. This is Siachen Glacier. So it is exactly located on the tri-junction, whereas Chinese are one side is there, Pakistan's are one side, and it is Jammu and Kashmir is one side, and it is in a high elevated zone. From here, we can able to easily control them as well as Chinese as well as India. So it's a strategically very, very important location. This location only, we have done a massive operation called Operation Magdut with the help of RA, and we could able to monitor it and capture it. It is clear. Whereas after Siachen, the Pakistani side is in the slope, down the slope. Siachen is a place, it's a high elevation. So Indian soldiers are completely guarding it 24/7 throughout the year, irrespective of what is the climatic conditions. So here, more than enemy, the climate killed many people. You got the point. That's the history here in Siachen Glacier or in the border posting. It's clear. Okay, next we'll see about the border issues. What kind of border issues we have? So please go through this. Yes, Marin, tell me.
So I have a doubt, but
Yeah.
related to this, as we have the satellite launch vehicles like PSLV and others. So is there a particular launch vehicle for each satellite to be launched, or whatever is available in the location, they launch it in that way, sir?
No, no, no. There are 3 vehicles are there. Okay. One
Okay.
is called ASLV, that is Augmented Satellite Launch Vehicle. Nowadays we are not using it. It is the old one. 1960s, 70s we have used. Next one is PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. We are launching it. Okay. This we are using it. Another one is GSLV, that is Geosynchronized Launch Vehicle. Okay. Now India is using these two. Now, what is the difference between these two is, it is primarily which vehicle you need to use it. It is primarily depends on which satellite you are launching. What is the purpose? Say, for example, if you are launching, say, for example, a satellite for a mobile communication, you got the point. Suppose, say, for example, our Indian mobile numbers are keep increasing. The mobile usages keep increasing. So it is crossing almost 100 crore. It is going to cross it. So now the mobile communication, if I am launching any satellite, that mobile communication is needed. I need that 24/7. You cannot say that Airtel cannot come and say your mobile will be useful only by morning 10 to till evening 10. Other 8 hours, 10 hours, it cannot work. Something like that, if nobody will go. So we need a mobile communication 24/7. That means I need to place a satellite in a place which can continuously locate on India like this. So this is a satellite, and it is continuously monitoring entire India and 24 into 7. Now you need to imagine it. One thing you need to understand. Here the earth is not static. It is moving in a particular direction. Suppose this is India. I am placing some satellites here. And the satellite, from the satellite towards India, I need to monitor 24 into 7. That's the condition because it's related with mobile communication. Suppose if the earth is rotating it, in the satellite also should rotate in the same angle and same direction and same speed, so that I can able to focus on India 24 into 7. You got this point? This point is clear for you, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Otherwise, what will happen? Maybe first few hours might be on India, another few hours might be in Pakistan because Earth is moving west to east direction. So I need to place a satellite in a particular height and a particular angle and particular speed, and I should exactly match with speed of the Earth. You got the point? That is why this launch vehicle is called geosynchronous. You got the point? The name is geosynchronous. That means what? I am synchronizing that particular satellites with geo, that means with Earth. So this satellite, whatever we are launching, the mobile communication satellites, that will rotate exactly at the same speed of the Earth. And that can be possible when I'm keeping the satellite exactly in a particular height, not everywhere. That is, if I'm not wrong, that is around 36,784 kilometer height. Only in this particular kilometer height and a particular angle, if I keep the satellite, that satellite will work exactly at the speed of the Earth. Okay, this is called geosynchronous orbit, GSO. They call it as GSO, geosynchronous orbit. So if any satellite, if I'm launching it for a for a purpose where I'm looking for 24 into 7 communication on India or any other particular place, then I need to go for this particular orbit. To place a satellite in this orbit, I have to choose this. PSLV, it is not possible. PSLV also technically we are trying now, but technically GSLV will be used for this kind of things. You got the point? Suppose if I'm launching one satellite for education purpose, we have something called EduSat. So in India, what time we are going for the study across India? Can you say? What time the people are going for study? Are they studying 24 into 7? Like this kind of online classes? So mostly if you see that morning 8 to 8, can you say like this? 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. approximately around 12 hours. If the satellite feedings are available on India, that is highly enough. Midnight, we are not going for any kind of college. We are not studying anywhere. You got the point? In that case, I no need to place this education satellite in geosynchronous orbit. It is unnecessary. It is a costly for me. So what they will do, they will place it somewhere in the middle, maybe around 1,000 kilometers above the Earth, and adjust the speed in such a manner and focus on India only on the daytime when the India is in the daytime. That's all. And the another half of the day, it might be focusing on somewhere in Africa or somewhere. They'll do the service. So in that case, that kind of education satellite, I will choose the PSLV. You got the point? Marine, are you clear? Are you listening?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any doubt in this?
No, sir.
Even for others? So it is purely depends on, anyway, we will study separately. There will be a science and tech classes that there. In that I'll explain about the types of satellite and everything. There you will get a complete idea.
Okay, sir.
Suppose, say, for example, your DTH channel, you have a Star Movie, Star Vijay, Sun Network, some whatever it is. Okay, these what do you call it? Satellite channels. Again, this satellite channel service we need 24 into 7. We can't say that the channels are available only for few minutes or few hours. So again, these channels also need to keep the satellite at 36,784 kilometers, because this is the only orbit we can achieve that particular speed technically. In that, suppose if you go 1 kilometer above or 1 kilometer below that, 24/7 option won't be there. There will be some slight mismatch. You may not get the signal. So that is why these orbit, excuse me, whatever you are keeping it, that all should comes under the GSLV. Primarily your communication satellites and your entertainment satellites. I mean, these two all will comes under GSLV, geosynchronized launch vehicle. Okay, now we will move on to this again, the border issues. Anyway, the topic is entirely different, satellites, that we can discuss later. Okay, now you just have a look at the slide. And this question was asked, which country is having longest border with India? This question was asked in your IAS once. 4,096 kilometers we have complete border with Bangladesh. Okay, and which are the states are sharing international border with Bangladesh? This question can be raised in your exam, even in KAS as well as in PSI. West Bengal, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. If you have an atlas in your hand, you can open your atlas, you can have the look at the map also. That is always good, so that you won't get confused, because majority of the people may know that where is West Bengal and Assam, but the Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram, they'll get confused. Okay. And the second longest border is Indo-China, 3,488, almost 3,500 kilometers. Third is Indo-Pakistan, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, and Jammu and Kashmir. These are the 4 places we are having a border. And Indo-Nepal, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, and Sikkim. Okay. And Indo-Myanmar, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Arunachal Pradesh, and Indo-Bhutan. So totally we have 6 countries are having a, India is sharing with the international border, and also we have a border with Afghanistan. We have a very, very small border with Afghanistan, that is hardly 106 kilometers. So totally, if there is a question, how many countries India is having the international border, that is 7 countries, not of 6. That is clear. But the 6 countries are, we have a major border length. In this, the questions, the same slide, the questions can come. Say, for example, which among the following state is having highest number of international border? Which state can you say by seeing it? Which state is having international border with many countries? Anyone?
West Bengal.
So West Bengal, it is with Bangladesh and also with Indo-Nepal. There is a border with Indo-Nepal and also with Indo-Bhutan. It is clear. With 3 countries, they are sharing the international border. Any other state like that?
Punjab.
Punjab, where and all it comes? It comes in Pakistan.
Pakistan.
It is only with Pakistan.
Okay.
It is only with Pakistan. You take Sikkim. Sikkim is with India, China, and Indo-Nepal, and Indo-Bhutan. You got the point? With 3 states, the Sikkim is having the 3 international border. Sikkim is having one side Nepal, one side China, one side Bhutan. Same way West Bengal. So the questions can come like this. You got the point. That you need to analyze it closely. Okay, so if these kind of questions are coming, certainly it is little difficult to answer the question unless until if you prepare it. So whenever you come across this slide, you closely have a look and keep your atlas in your hand and monitor it properly so that you can able to answer the question. So any doubt so far in this? So in this, if you see that the border dispute we have with almost all the countries, particularly these three: Pakistan, China, and Bangladesh. Now recently we have some dispute with Nepal also. Okay. Bhutan, we don't have much dispute. I mean, there is no dispute with Bhutan. With Myanmar also, we don't have any border dispute, but we have on other issues of insurgency. Okay. Except Bhutan, rest all other places we have an issue. In that, the top major issues are with China and with Pakistan. These two countries. Bangladesh, to an extent, it is solved almost. Negotiations are going on. We are going for the agreement, and they're ready to cooperate with India. And the things are moving in a positive direction when it comes to Bangladesh. And Indo-Nepal, only this year, only in some particular pocket in one district, there was a dispute. Probably this will be solved soon. Okay. We don't have much major issues with Nepal. Same way with Myanmar. So the major border tension, it is primarily with Indo-China and Indo-Pakistan. So any doubts so far in this? Now the general challenges. What is the generic challenges any country, with any country, wherever we have international border, India is facing it. Okay, why there is a dispute? One is the poor demarcation of the borders. Suppose if we take the international border between India and China, or international border between India and Pakistan. India and China, it is not recognizing McMogan line, which is considered to be the international border between India and China. Okay, so they are not accepting it. It's a poor demarcation. It was not done scientifically. That was what their strength. Next is the porous border. It is a completely porous. That means it is not completely protected by a wall or a solar fencing or at least by a barricade, nothing. Okay, it is a completely open area. Okay, in many places it's a open area. Particularly if you take India and Bangladesh, it's a completely open, because 4,000 kilometers plus guarding them, it is not an easy job. It is impossible. Next is illegal activities and criminal syndicates. Almost all illegal activities, smuggling activities and criminal syndicates are operating across the border. Drug trafficking and money laundering. Money laundering, and plus you can put hawala transactions. So all these things are happening across the border. So if these things are not protected or not monitored properly, certainly it is going to be a great threat to the national security. So these 4 points, the top 4 points, you can write it for any border. Suppose if there is a border dispute, questions are coming, and discuss about the challenges or opportunities in terms of border dispute or something. If you don't know anything to write, generally these 4 points you can easily write. Poor demarcation, porous border, illegal activities and criminal syndicates, drug trafficking and money laundering, because it's a commonly applicable points with India's border with any country, not only for India, or any between any international border, you can apply this. Say for example, US and Mexico. You can say this: poor demarcation, porous border, illegal activities, drug trafficking, it is applicable. It's clear. So it is not a specific to the particular country or border. It is generic challenges what we are facing it along the land boundaries. It's clear. So that it's you will get more points to write in your 250 words answer. And this is about the specific issues. Specific issues, exactly what we have, from which border we have the trouble, what is the issue in that particular place. If we take a McMogan line with China, we have a Doklam disputes, Galwan dispute, Aksai Chin, and etc. like that. Okay, so these exact issues we can see it in next class, probably tomorrow. If you have any doubt, you can ask me now.
Sir, one thing.
Yeah.
Things related to military, these are also taken care of by RAW and IB.
Which one?
Things related to military. These are also taken care of by Roy Naval. For example, like Pathankot incident or maybe Uri incident, IB and Raw will be responsible for the intelligence, right?
Yeah, see, IB is for complete. Okay, but apart from that, you have a special wings are there within defense forces. You have, say, for example, Navy is there, means naval intelligence is there. There is a separate department is there within the Navy. Same way, Army intelligence are there. You got the point. The Army officers will work within their particular domain and they will look after it. Okay. But since IB is a major organization, normally, if there is any threat to the defense forces, say, for example, if there is a probable URI attack, if the IB got some information, what the IB will do, immediately they'll pass the message to the Army intelligence. Okay. And the Army intelligence should coordinate with whatever the information they have, and they need to protect themselves. So the IB job is like passing the information to the concerned department. Because IB as such, if you see that, it is a completely invisible organization. Nobody knows where is the office. Okay, it is completely invisible organization. Even you can't find their office in the map. In a Google map, it will not show. Okay. Even the RAW also, it's a kind of invisible organization. So nobody go there and give a complaint. It is clear. Whereas other organizations are visible. I know where is Army headquarters and where is Army intelligence office or Naval intelligence office. The people know that, or where the CBI is there. Okay, or where the police commissioner, where the local police station, the people can move in and do the complaint. It is possible. Whereas an IB and RAW, it's not like that. So IB is a national organization. Army intelligence will copter only with respect to that particular department. In the case of Uri attack or Pathankot attack, of course, it is a failure for both IB as well as for the particular department.
Okay, sir.
It's clear.
Yes, sir.
So any other question?